Hello, good evening and welcome to UPfront. My name is Raymond Alqua. Tonight, we're looking at the bill which was supposed to give us the glimmers hope of having to fight corruption in a much more meaningful manner, but got shut down, or in your own understanding, withdrawn by the same people that took it to the Parliament of the Republic of Ghana. Is the Office of Special Prosecutor Bill 2017. We'll be discussing the brouhaha surrounding its withdrawal and what should be done to this particular bill to make sure that it's fit for purpose, as it's supposed to help us fight the gargantuan problem of corruption, costing this nation $3 billion in some estimations every single year. We'll be back after this break and I'll tell you who my guest is. You're welcome back. This is UPfront. Today, we are looking at the Special Prosecutor's Bill. The bill actually had the majority withdrawing it at the very last minute yesterday. The cause, we're told, is because there's a need for wider consultations. The minority, however, raised several important questions. The majority believes they were afraid of the bill which is supposed to hold them to account. That office, its setup was a constitutional requirement, a manifesto promise, which was supposed to be made somewhat important in the run-up to the 2016 election. My guest today is a former Deputy Attorney General and Minister of Justice of the Republic of Ghana, Dr. Dominic Nayini. You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
He is also a member of Parliament. Is
Bolgatanga East.
Bolgatanga East.
Yes.
And I hope you are doing well.
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Brilliant.
And thanks for having me.
They said you're afraid. The minority is afraid. I mean, they say that from that particular old proverb that when old women see dry bones or hear dry bones in a proverb, they start feeling uneasy. That's the expression that best describes the minority in Ghana now, because you fear this bill was supposed to prosecute you. First and foremost, you being a champion in times past, I don't know if you are still a champion of rule of law, and a former, you're still a law lecturer, right? Law lecturer.
No, I've stopped teaching.
Oh, you stopped teaching, right?
Yes.
And a former law lecturer. Would it not have been more important for you to support such a bill, mindful of its role in a country riddled with corruption, like many have said in this country?
Oh, thank you very much, Raymond. I want to say it upfront that as far as the minority is concerned, we are in full support of the bill, to set up the office of the special prosecutor.
Are you sure?
Yes, I am. And
when did the minority take this resolve?
I always go back to the statement that Honorable Haruna Idrisu made when the bill was laid for the first time, or let me put it this way, when the bill was wrongfully laid for the first time. In supporting the motion for the laying of the bill, he made it categorically clear that we in the minority were at idem with the government and the majority in the resolve to fight corruption, but that would make sure that we do it in accordance with the law and constitution of this country. And he was speaking for the minority NDC. Now, go back to our 2016 election manifesto. And our resolve to fight corruption was stated there in black and white, except that, of course, our proposal for dealing with the perception of the lack of independence of the Attorney General was different. We were not going to set up an office of special prosecutor and pretend that within the context of Article 88 of the Constitution, it is possible to have someone exercise the prosecutorial authority of the Attorney General without at the same time accounting to the person who is vested with that constitutional mandate. We think that, it is not possible to, set up an independent office within the context of Article 88. What we say is that you can let the Attorney General delegate that power and provide sufficient guarantees against interference. Okay? Just enough for the person to be able to operate without having to look over the shoulder about what the Attorney General is doing. But that person need to account to the Attorney General for the exercise of the prosecutorial power of that high office. So for us, it's important that when we are looking at the bill, will also look at it within the context of the Constitution. That context is very, very important. It is not for nothing that the drafters of the Constitution vested the entire power to prosecute, any crime in this country in the Attorney General of the Republic.
That's interesting to note. And you say that you have all times have been in support of this bill.
That is
at least the idea.
That is so.
Really?
You can set up the office, but you have to do it right. Okay? That is the NPP's government's method that they have proposed to fight corruption. The people of this country gave them the mandate, at least for 4 years, to manage the public affairs of this country. So for us, it will be anathema, to try to say that the government should not do what it has proposed to do. But it has to do it right.
Okay, but give me a second. On March 1, 2017, in the Parliament of the Republic of Ghana, the establishment of, you said clearly, the establishment of the Office of Special Prosecutor in common law jurisdictions has always been based upon one important consideration, that is conflict of interest between the Attorney General, who is the constitutional repository or power to prosecute, and the person who has broken the criminal laws of the country. So conflict of interest is a cardinal consideration. Now, in other situations where I'm very certain we are on this side, we on this side can predict with mathematical certainty that the office of the special prosecutor will be aimed at prosecuting former ministers and appointees of the former government.
Yes, I did say
You said that?
And I stand by those words.
I mean, even though you believe that you are the target, you still think that the establishment of this office is right?
Yes, because if we did wrong...
How do you reconcile both?
There's no contradiction at all.
Okay.
In fact, it's a seeming contradiction,
okay,
or an oxymoron. All right?
I see.
If we did something wrong whilst in public office, then we didn't deserve to be in office. And so we should be held to account for whatever we did that was wrong. The people of Ghana gave us the mandate to rule, and rule in a manner that is welfare enhancing, in accordance with the dictates of our Constitution and in accordance with the dictates of our laws. Okay? If you look at Article 1 of the Constitution, it says that the powers of government must be exercised in the name of
the people
and for the welfare of the people of the country.
Okay.
So if we did anything that was welfare reducing, but that also at the same time is criminal, okay, we are prepared to face the law.
But I mean, the principle of self-preservation will mean that you would oppose any attempt to actually restrict and limit your freedoms, won't you?
Well, that is the first law of nature, the law of self-preservation, right? But there are protections within the Constitution for you to engage in self-preservation. Look at Article 19 of the Constitution. It's very, very clear that we have a right to fair trial. We have a right to a lawyer of our choice. If we ever get charged, okay. And then there are other protections in the law that we can take. The right to remain silent and not to turn over any evidence that is incriminating and so on.
But so, how do you convince ordinary people who are not lawyers, who are probably not in Parliament, that even though you admit this law may be used to prosecute yourself and your colleagues in the former administration, you are solely in support of it, and yet raising questions that in part has led to its withdrawal today?
The questions were legitimate questions concerning conformity with the Constitution.
Okay.
And I do not see why, so much is being made, of our attempt to ensure compliance with the Constitution. I thought that we on the side of the minority would have been praised for our, ability to hold the government to account in terms of its compliance with the law.
Okay, let me get it straight. Are you willing to go to jail?
Willing to go to jail?
Yes.
Why? I'm sorry.
I just want to know, will you be happy to be prosecuted under this law?
Nobody in his right mind is happy to be prosecuted.
So a natural instinct to oppose this law is there?
I don't say that. I don't think that it's a natural instinct.
Really?
Right? I don't think that it's a natural instinct. Let me repeat it. Not even those in government today, right, would happily, offer themselves up for prosecution. All right. So the natural tendency is to, as you rightly pointed out, self-preserve.
Okay.
However, we need to, ensure that the right thing is being done in this country when we are managing public affairs. And what I'm saying is that if they have evidence that any person in our government, okay, committed an offense, and that evidence can stand up to scrutiny in a court of competent jurisdiction, they should bring it on. However, I am not one who will support a situation where we are engaged in political vendetta, we are engaged in witch hunting, we are engaged in indiscriminate prosecution and arrest and investigation of former officials just because of, the fact that we want the perception of rampant corruption that was being used, during the era of political campaigning, all right, to now turn into reality.
Okay, that's interesting to know. Now, I want to interrogate this particular issue. The problems you have with this bill, is it with the procedure for delaying and probable subsequent consideration of the bill,
right,
or with the content of the bill?
Ray, we have not yet come to the content of the bill.
I've heard you and the colleagues raise some of the issues.
Right.
Article 8.8, for example, is because you have seen something that's close to the content of this bill.
In the discourse, in the public discourse on this matter, right? Sometimes journalists have asked questions about specific aspects of the bill, and naturally, we would have to answer to the questions or abstain from answering if we do not have any, sufficient basis for providing an answer. Okay. But at this stage, our concern, and this is a legitimate concern that has led to the withdrawal of the bill, was to ensure that the Constitution was complied with. We raised the issue about the fact that it was not gazetted. They went and did a provided the gazette notification. Okay. We also raised the issue about the fact that it has not been 14 days since the gazette notification. All right. And that is why the bill was withdrawn. We objected to it being, placed on a certificate of, agency, and the Committee of Constitutional, Legal, and Parliamentary Affairs, comprising both the majority and the minority, unanimously came back and reported to Mr. Speaker that it is true that the bill cannot be on a certificate of agency. And Ray, when you look at our standing orders, particularly Order 119, if the bill came on a certificate of agency, it could be passed in one day. Don't the people of this country deserve better in terms of, deliberation, okay, and discussion of the substantive content of the bill in order to fine-tune it for purposes of, making sure that the office operates well and effectively and efficiently to prosecute, corruption?
Do you believe that the intent behind this bill is good?
The intent behind the bill is good in the sense that it is designed to fight corruption.
Do you believe that when this bill
and fighting
is passed,
corruption is a good thing?
Very good.
Yeah.
Do you believe that when this bill is passed, it will actually help reduce corruption?
I need the empirical evidence for that, to sustain that belief.
But you believe the intent is good?
I think so.
But the actual action may not be the case.
Well, let's wait and see. When we get to the bridge, we'll cross it. Okay, but the Attorney General, is vested with that power now. Nothing prevents her from undertaking any prosecutions. And I don't see, like I was saying in Parliament on the issue of conflict of interest. Okay. Right? If you want to prosecute persons who committed, offenses of corruption under the Mahama administration, okay, you don't need to wait till the OSP is established before you do so. You can actually do so now.
Is that not an indication to you that there is no attempt to witch hunt with this particular
I don't think so. Really? Who is going to appoint the special prosecutor? It's certainly not President Mahama.
It's actually not President Akufo-Addo too.
Well, in the bill, it says he will appoint.
It's not the Attorney General's recommendation?
He may delegate the power of appointment to the Attorney General.
But I thought he had
with the prior approval of Parliament. Yes. But that doesn't still mean that the person is not going to be an appointee of His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo.
Okay, now let me get this straight. It says that the purpose of this bill is to establish the Office of the Special Prosecutor as a specialized agency to investigate specific cases of corruption involving public officers and political office holders in the performance of their functions, as well as individuals in the private sector implicated in the commission of corruption, and prosecute these offenses on the authority of the Attorney General.
Yes. That is what,
You're okay with that?
It says. Yes, I'm okay with that.
Okay, let me move on to give you the next line, which is very much controversial. Yes. And says that the establishment of the Office of the Special Prosecutor has become necessary in view of the institutional bottlenecks that impede the fight against corruption. Are there institutional bottlenecks that impede the fight against corruption?
Well, it is their duty to state them in the memorandum as required under Article 106 of the Constitution.
You don't know?
I'm not the proponent of the bill.
No, but you don't know that there are institutional bottlenecks
look, there are institutional bottlenecks everywhere.
The NDC,
right?
And let me
the
previous government which you served,
right,
actually made sure that we had the National Anti-Corruption Action Plan, what they call it,
yes,
endorsed,
that is
right?
Endorsed, yes.
You did?
We did, and that was acknowledged by the UN.
Yes, the National Anti-Corruption Action Plan had stated some institutional bottlenecks.
Yes.
So why are you now refusing to admit that there are institutional bottlenecks in the fight?
What I'm saying,
that they should state it rather here.
What they should state it in the memorandum to the bill.
But I thought it was obvious to all of us.
Well, I mean, but you know, Article 106 of the Constitution requires that, all right, you state the deficiencies in the existing law.
Okay.
All right. And when you talk about institutions, what are institutions? Institutions are the rules of the game.
All right.
In any society.
I get
that includes the normative rules, you know, that have been enacted into law by the legislature. So if you are talking about institutional bottlenecks, right, what are the deficiencies currently existing in the existing law that you need to clear with this bill? And Ray, if you look,
I want to move to that particular point because they make a point here. It says the monopoly of prosecutorial authority by an attorney general who is hired and fired by the president has been singled out by governance experts as one of the key factors that stand in the way of using law enforcement and prosecution as a credible tool in the fight against corruption. True or false?
It's not true.
Really?
Yeah.
From your experience?
Well, I mean, you talk about the monopoly of the prosecutorial power by the Attorney General.
Yeah.
And yet you are still asking the same Attorney General to delegate power to the Special Prosecutor to prosecute.
Who is hired and fired by the president?
No, look at the
first
one
part that says that
it says on the authority of the Attorney General.
But you also told me earlier on that the president will be having some level of insulation from the control.
If you were looking at a situation where, right, let's use the concept of a marketplace, right, where you have perfect competition, okay, and you have atomistic actors who are, who act in accordance with the laws of supply and demand, right? If that were the case, okay, or even in a situation of an oligopoly, right, where you have a few actors, who can, make sure that the laws of supply and demand, all right, play out well to suit them, okay? If that were the situation in the fight against corruption, okay, I would have been adidem with them in this.
To be fair,
talking about a monopoly.
He's a law lecturer who recently stopped teaching law, but adidem means that you would have agreed with them.
Yes. Okay. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, because
we are in the same mind. We are on the same page.
You agree
mentally. So the point I'm making is that, okay, here we are dealing with the exercise of public power, and we are not looking at the competition between various entities and institutions, okay, in the bid to be more efficient. So the Constitution saw it fit to vest that power in a monopolistic fashion in the Attorney General,
which has been deemed now by governance experts as a very dangerous act.
It is not.
Really?
It is not at all.
I am here to see an Attorney General.
Look at the United States of America.
Yeah.
Look at the United States of America.
Political culture is
the
different from us.
The Justice Department, is in charge of prosecutions. When they are appointing a special prosecutor, okay, they appoint that person, the person who does appointment under the former Government in Ethics Act, of 1980, which was repealed. Now under the Justice Department protocols, when you appoint a special prosecutor, it is the Attorney General who does the appointment. And yet the protocols allows the Attorney General not to interfere in the work of the special prosecutor. All right? How does that play out? What will the governance experts say? That the person who has the monopolistic right to prosecute is the one who gives that right to a special prosecutor in another jurisdiction, and then we applaud them that they are a more advanced jurisdiction. But
is that not the same situation you are talking about in this?
Well, that is not what we are saying here. We are making a strong case in the memorandum, or the authors of the bill are making a strong case that it is wrong for the Constitution to have vested the power to prosecute in only the Attorney General, and that this has not augured well, for the prosecution of offenses of corruption and corruption-related
I'm shocked you are saying it is not the case, because this is not the first time I'm hearing it. I've heard paper after paper, the Afrobarometer, Ghanaians in their own opinion and appreciation of the issues, admitting that this is the case.
You see, sometimes when you say something repeatedly, it crystallizes into the truth. It doesn't mean that that is the truth. It is not the objective truth.
You've been in that office before?
Yes.
As a Deputy Attorney General?
That is so.
You are saying here that there were no pressures on you, there were no compelling factors, you were not under extreme pressure not to prosecute people from your fold?
There were no such pressures on us.
I'm surprised, because virtually everybody says so.
Well, look, you see, it depends on where the pressure comes from, right? If pressure came from His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, I would have admitted on this set that yes, there was pressure. But if they came from NDC foot soldiers, okay, that wasn't pressure that, we would, just succumb to.
Did you ever have to let go of a prosecution like that?
No.
Because the person was within the party?
The
person was a former minister?
We never did something like that.
The person was close to government?
We never did something like that. We never did. I'm telling you, okay, that in all the 4 years that I assisted, the Honorable Attorney General, Marita Brew Appiah-Oppong, to do her work, we never had to drop any prosecution because of the fact that the person was, close to the government or was close to the party. So
the popularly accepted belief is wrong?
It is wrong in our case.
In your case?
In our case,
but you admit that there
wrong.
Could be an Attorney General or a deputy who actually succumb to such pressures?
Well, I need a life example to be able to say yes or no.
Now, the question has been asked consistently. For example, to many minds, the man Clement Kofi Umado should have been prosecuted. And yet, the Attorney General's Department did not do anything about that.
That's
because of a very political weight he happens to be in the NDC.
That is not true.
And in the voter region.
We actually, had several meetings, reviewed the dockets, met with the DPP and her team, and came to the conclusion that the evidence against Clement Humado would not stand up to scrutiny beyond reasonable doubt.
Even when he signed all of these contracts that were later on deemed to have been abused.
Ray, the fact that you have signed a contract, and you see that is where the mistake is. The fact that you have signed a contract as a minister, in and of itself, is not evidence of a wrongdoing. Okay. If you sign the contract,
he was not indicted by any report.
In good faith.
How do you establish the good faith?
Well, how do you establish good faith?
Yes.
Well, when you have done your investigation and you have realized that this person, okay, signed the contract believing that the contract was going to, be performed and it was going to inure to the public benefit and so on and so forth, sought advice or, got memos from his department telling him that this contract, is good, for the department or for the country and so on and so forth, right? The totality of those circumstances will tell you that the person was doing it in good faith.
Interesting. And I don't want to be seen as actually picking out individuals and laying out their cases.
I'm just telling you that
people believe that you let go of people because they were party and big works in the party anyway.
Look, let me tell you something. You saw Honorable Clement Humado in the dock.
Yes. Prosecution witness.
Giving evidence, sorry, as a credible witness. Under cross-examination, he stood up, to whatever was being put to him by the defense team. Okay? And you can tell from the record that he was an honest man who did his work as a minister, all right? And that wrongdoing had been done behind him. You see, no minister has the eyes of an eagle to be able to survey the entire department and know what is happening in the department. So if he takes good advice and then executes a document, all right, you cannot take that document as prima facie evidence subsequently, okay, to say that the person has engaged in corruption.
I see.
Now,
To you, you can distinguish between the conduct of himself and that of Abu Gapele, who was a smaller fish in this case.
no, it is not about being a smaller fish. And I will, because the case is still pending.
Yes,
I
but
would
that's
not,
why I'm actually not going into the details of that, because I was actually going to...
Abu Gapele has rights under the law. I would desist, from commenting on the merits of, why he's standing trial.
The same pressures we are told were brought to bear on you, but I'll be coming to that particular issue. I'm giving to understand I'm supposed to take a break now. We are still on Upfront. My guest is a former Deputy Attorney General of the Republic of Ghana, a very strong man. I mean, he's, to all intents and purposes, part of the people who say that the Special Prosecutor's Bill, which President Nana Akufo-Addo wants to use to fight big-time corruption, should be put on hold for now. We'll be back after this break. You're welcome back. This is Upfront. My guest today is a former Deputy Attorney General, the Member of Parliament for Bolgatanga East, who is leading the charge in the Parliament of the Republic of Ghana against plans to make sure that we rid this state of corruption. And that is through the Office of the Special Prosecutor. There is procedural issues which first actually compel the committee to stop going through the certificate of urgency in the passage of this bill. Now it is being utterly withdrawn. It's unclear when it's going to be relayed, but the promise from the majority leader is that they will pass it and make it ready for the office to have provisions in the next budget. How true and easy is that going to be? Welcome back. And Doc, thank you so much for joining us on this discussion. And when we were going on the break, I was giving you instances where people believe we should have prosecuted people, and yet it didn't do it. And when they believe that was because massive pressure was brought to bear on those of you in that particular office, and you cowed to the pressure because it is real politique. You are not in and of there by yourself. People put you there. So the pressures are big time on you. But you are denying all of these things.
Yes, I am. And it is because there is no evidence. There's no scintilla of evidence at all that there was pressure being put on us, not to prosecute certain officers or public office holders in our government. Nothing like that happened. Martin
Amidu has accused you of, as in government then, of being lackadaisical and refusing to do proper prosecution in the case of Alfred Agbesi Woyome. Indeed, at a point in time,
I'm aware of that accusation, but yes, that accusation was not I think, a fair accusation, because we were diligently prosecuting, Woyome in court. And I remember
You withdrew an oral examination request. He had to go and compel the court to let that happen.
No. That's a different ball game, a different kettle of fish. This is not the attempt, to retrieve the effort that we're making to retrieve the money, right? The High Court trial, was conducted at the highest level of the Attorney General's department, and I remember very well that the Honorable Attorney General herself used to attend court, with the prosecutors in order to observe what was happening, and then to advise herself with respect to how the prosecution was taking place. And it was a DPP, who did the prosecution. So for me, I don't see how anybody would be fair enough to say we're not diligent. We did our best in the circumstances. And you see, when I raise issues about the judge's conduct,
yes,
you remember
Justice Ajat Nassam.
Yes, and when I raised issues about his conduct, because sitting where I sat, I knew things that the Honorable former Attorney General did not know, and I raised issues with his conduct after the fact, after the judgment, and the same former Attorney General, blasted me in a piece that he published, saying that I should not sit on radio or on TV and then impugn the integrity of a judge. But we all saw what happened.
Put him in the light that probably people now look at me in a very different case anyway.
Right.
But my point here is that when you went to the appeals court, your case was shut down too.
Yes, it was shut down. Was that our fault that it was shut down?
No, Justice Ajat Nassam was problematic, the accused court, I'm sure, had more than one person sitting on the particular
But of course, they had to look at the evidence as gathered, that was sent from the High Court. So if there were any deficiencies, they would be in the dockets that were built, and then also the judgment. It was a judgment that was being challenged.
I mean, many people say
so
that
it wasn't a de novo hearing.
Oh, okay.
Anyway,
that's true.
No, at the Court of Appeal, it wasn't a de novo hearing. All right. Though the principle of law is that an appeal is by way of rehearing.
De novo means a new hearing.
A new hearing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So they examined the judgment, and based upon that, they said that our grounds of appeal did not, hold up to scrutiny.
Okay,
so that wasn't our fault. We did our
I get
best.
your point on that particular one. On hindsight, is there anything you could have done differently in the Woyome case?
Well, I think maybe the building of the dockets could have been done better. The building of the dockets could have been done better.
You should have taken over the case and done it on your own.
Well, I'm not saying that we could have. We were doing it. We're doing the case. It was being done in the name of the Attorney General.
Wasn't given the necessary priority.
But what I'm saying, when I talk about building of the docket, it is the police docket.
Oh, okay.
It's the police docket I'm talking about.
Investigations, you mean?
The investigation. Okay. It is at that point after the investigation that the docket then comes to us, and based upon the evidence built in the docket, we then undertake the prosecution.
Have you advised your predecessors, your successors about this particular issue?
No,
in fairness, but you are interested in the state.
It's not my duty to do so. And then I must say, the current Attorney General is a very experienced lawyer.
Okay.
She's a very experienced lawyer, and I had occasion to do one case, with her in the High Court, a long time ago. I think it must have been somewhere in 2002. Okay, and I found her, very astute as a lawyer.
Okay.
All right. So I don't think that she needs my advice, but if ever she calls me to say,
has she seen this problem from afar? Do you think she has seen this problem?
Oh, I'm sure she would have spotted it. I'm sure she would have spotted it.
Are they in a better place to retrieve the monies from Mr. Woyome?
I cannot proffer an opinion now because the matter is sub judice.
Yes.
You know that it is before the High Court now.
To
He's
your
being
mind,
orally
to
examined.
your mind, are they on the right track?
I doubt if any monies will be retrieved beyond what we have gotten. But if they get the 51 million, all of the 51 million, the better for the people of this country.
Okay, now let's get back to this particular bill because I was going to cite as examples, but I don't want to give you those example systems today. Now, there's a part of the bill, I don't know, you saw the draft bill, right?
Yes, I have.
You read it in detail?
Well, there are different versions,
I had the most current draft bill.
Okay, the most current one.
Yes, because
okay.
I've seen like two others which have slight differences.
So there are some, for instance, there's one that I was using that did not have a clause about the power to enter nolle prosequi. So I proffered an opinion that questioned why or
and
who is supposed.
Updated.
Well, I don't know whether it was updated, but there are different versions in the system. So I cannot say, I cannot speak to what you have now unless you tell me the clause because I reviewed what has come to Parliament.
Okay, now the part of the functions of this particular office when set up says that it's supposed to investigate and prosecute cases of alleged corruption or corruption offenses under the Public Procurement Act 2003. Right. Do you have a problem with that?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Okay. There's also a part that says
there have been instances where breaches of the procurement law and the offenses created thereunder have come to us. But we need to be careful that we are not creating new offenses in the public. By stating this, we're not creating new offenses. Okay, the Public Procurement Act has its own set of offenses. There's a section dealing with offenses.
Yeah.
All right. So,
but this one says that offenses under that particular.
Right. So it means that that reference is to the offenses specifically.
Yes. But they're also talking about alleged corruption or corruption under the public. Is there specific offenses like that?
You see, for instance, I think they are probably trying to say something that they haven't said very clearly, but we will deal with it when it comes to Parliament.
No, but they are saying that.
No, let me tell.
Alleged corruption.
Let me say
or corruption under the Public Procurement Act.
You see, the Public Procurement Act has no definition, no offense called corruption.
So that's what is confusing now.
Right, but what they are trying to say is that in the process of public procurement, right, when a bribe has been given,
Okay.
or when a contract price has been inflated, and so that somebody stands to benefit. All right, the special prosecutor can undertake an investigation and then prosecute those people.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Interesting.
But what they have said actually, a virtue of statutory interpretation, is that you are supposed to prosecute offenses under the public procurement law.
But it says that investigate and prosecute cases of alleged corruption or corruption offenses.
Yes.
So that's where
just read
okay.
Article 19 of the Constitution.
Okay.
You cannot be prosecuted unless the offense has been clearly stated
in
law. So if you talk about corruption
in the Criminal Other Offences Act, is there anything like that, alleged corruption or corruption under the Public Procurement Act?
No.
There's nothing like
No.
that.
Under 29, there's nothing like that.
But let me bring you to the independence of this office. And it says here, that's where some people had problems anyway. Except as otherwise provided the Constitution or by any other law not inconsistent with the Constitution, the office is not subject to the direction or control of a person or any authority in the performance of the functions of the office.
Is that a reference to Article 88 of the Constitution?
Does it?
Except as otherwise provided in the Constitution.
Yes.
And the Constitution says
the powers are
vested in the Attorney
General.
General. If that is a reference to, to Article 88 of the Constitution, I'm fine with it.
So why is this a problem?
Why is it a problem?
Yes.
Well, it is a problem because they are seeking to say, in one breath, that this person is exercising power on the authority of the Attorney General. And in another breath, saying that the person is an independent body. That is what they are trying to say here. And I think that is where the problem lies.
And what would the conflict be? That there will be a case and this particular special prosecutor will try to deal with the case and the Attorney General will say, no, I have the power to deal with this matter. Is that what you suspect may be the problem?
That could arise if there's an Attorney General who is assertive and wants, to exercise his or her constitutional
powers. Who is willing to protect corrupt people in government.
That can also happen. But I doubt whether any president will appoint a person, as Attorney General who is willing to conceal crime. Seriously speaking, that I think is unthinkable.
Really?
Yeah, right.
You believe that all presidents will do good?
I don't believe that all presidents will do good.
And that
I believe that they have, they are capable of, a certain, we should accord our, presidents, with that, give them that respect as people who can make, good choices for this country. And what I'm saying is that for a president to appoint, a person who will conceal crime, virtually appoint a crook as his Attorney General, I think that would be...
I think you're overstating it. Now, if the Attorney General has that pressure from his political party, and the most important deal of every political party is to win political power, and they feel that their political power is being threatened, having to conceal crime will not be the biggest crime for them to do. Isn't it so?
Well, it may not be, but I think that as a senior lawyer, usually an Attorney General will be at least 18 years at the bar, right? As a senior lawyer, I think that will be an affront to the profession. It will be unethical, and that person probably doesn't deserve to be in the office if the person will conceal crime.
You were successful in getting the government to actually not go for, how do you call it? A speedy a speedy passage. That's the certificate of urgency.
Yes.
But did you expect that they would withdraw the bill?
It came as a surprise. I wasn't on the floor of Parliament in that day because I had some commitments outside the House. But it came as a pleasant surprise to me because at the end of the day,
the minority that asked that they should withdraw the bill.
They considered that the issues that we had raised were legitimate.
And some were complaining that why did you take form over substance, procedure over the substance of the bill, when there's an agreement that there's a need to fight corruption, when there's an agreement that the idea behind the special prosecutor is in the office of good? Why did you choose to push the procedure as more important than the substance in the passage of this bill?
When you use the Constitution as a benchmark, both procedure and form have equal weight. Yes.
Okay, so now let me get this straight. In Parliament, you say you are master of your own rules, isn't it?
Yes, we are.
So what would have you gone wrong if you decided to, for once, sidestep your rules for the greater good?
No, we cannot. We can sidestep the orders. We can't sidestep the Constitution. We are not allowed to sidestep the Constitution. All the three branches of government, you know, are subservient to the Constitution.
You're on the Legal and Constitutional Committee.
Yes, I am.
Why didn't you point this out early on so that they can avoid these hurdles before it got to the point that it had
that was the point of the objection that I raised when the bill was first laid. I raised the objection and pointed out to the Right Honourable Speaker and to the House as a whole that these constitutional requirements have not been met.
Okay.
But I think in the heat of the debate, and particularly when the Honourable Majority Leader took refuge under Article 106(13), I mean, they thought that, well, it was okay for the bill to proceed. But then subsequently, when the committee came back after due deliberation and said there was nothing to convince the committee that this should come under a certificate of urgency, I think they started thinking and taking a step back to say, maybe we made a mistake. And ultimately, they, conceded when they withdrew the bill.
Okay, so what's your understanding of what has been done now? Withdraw to relay sometime in the future or withdraw permanently?
Oh, I think it is to be relayed, sometime in the future. I don't think that the government is going to abandon this, flagship, policy proposal that they are bringing to Parliament. I don't think that, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo will ever back down on the setting up of the Office of Special Prosecutor.
How crucial is this setback?
Well, I don't think, we in government, you experience setbacks now and then. I remember leading the fight on behalf of my minister on the right to information.
Yeah.
On the last day that we rose before the elections, when the bill could not pass, I was really very sad. Really, really very sad.
Were you not shocked that the majority then said that they needed to heed the voice of the minority, which was something that was not really the case most of the time when it came to the right to information? Well, I
was kind of surprised.
Many believe that.
I knew there was some kind of consensus. There was some kind of.
Did this shock you? Because really, the people of this republic have shown that they wanted this right to information bill. It was surprising that you in the majority have pushed through bills with your numbers. Yeah. In this particular case, you're not willing to do so.
Well, I don't think it was. If it came to a vote, if it ever came to a vote, I believe I would have supported it.
So what prevented it from coming to a vote?
Because the president wanted it badly. There were so many amendments that were proposed on the floor. Particularly from the side of the minority, and we had to take them into account.
And the amendments were so crucial that I needed to start all over again in a new parliament.
See, Ray, the thing, I didn't make this point, I think sometime during the course of the deliberations about the right to information bill. And the point was that, look, currently, the right is actually guaranteed under the Constitution. So anybody can go to court, and people have gone to court. I remember Kofi Bentil of Imani and Co. Yeah. They went to court, and the court made an order for the production of certain documents, all right, or the provision of information. So people can go to court, in terms of the Constitution, and then exercise the right to information, right? All that we wanted to do was to streamline the way that right is exercised.
Do you think that this government will...
the right already exists generically. We just wanted to streamline what, you do in order to access the information and so on.
Do you think that this particular right to information bill will be passed this year?
I don't know. I'm not in government.
The majority leader is not sure.
Well, you know what? In terms of the antecedents of the bill, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, who was then, I think, in opposition, together with Justice Senin and a number of other experienced lawyers, drafted the first bill that was supposed to come to Parliament on the right to information.
He's committed to it, you mean?
So I think he's committed to it, and I urge him, to get his Attorney General to lay the bill.
one simple thing.
To relay the bill.
What should the current government do about this special prosecutor bill so that you can and be willing to get it passed? Even this comes under a certificate of urgency.
Well, I don't think it should come under a certificate of urgency in the first place for the reasons that the committee gave.
Yeah.
Secondly, I believe that procedurally there must be compliance with all the requirements of the Constitution as well as the standing orders. And then also the substance, right? I think there should be an upfront, admission that this person should be accountable to the Attorney General.
There will be a useless position.
Well, it will not be, my brother. It will not be. I think it should be possible for there to be some statutory hedges around the institution, the office of the Special Prosecutor, to insulate him, not completely, from the Attorney General, but to, make sure that he's able to perform with a certain measure of autonomy, but at the same time, account to the Attorney General, who is the constitutional repository of that power.
Will they still be able to fight former government officials like yourself?
Well, it is unfortunate if the perception is that this is meant to fight us. But you
believe that? You believe that? You have stated it categorically.
I did state that.
Yes.
But I am hoping, against hope, that is not true.
Okay.
That the prosecutor will actually show Ghanaians, the example, of how you prosecute certain government officials, right? And, I keep saying people should understand, for instance, that time doesn't run against a crime.
I get your point. But because I'm running out of time now, there are a couple of questions that you should be able to answer quickly before we get to go. What's the problem with that Mary deal that the minority has problems with? If they seem to have a problem and it's going to be reviewed or you are withdrawing your assent, what's the problem with that?
There are a lot of legal and constitutional problems with the move that is going to be made. And I think when the motion is moved, you will hear from us. But we think that it is, this is a foreign investor. The minority first, the then minority thought that there was something wrong with the deal, but found a place in their heart, and mind, to approve the deal in Parliament.
Okay.
All right. They were given requisite information to make a judgment, and they made the judgment, which rightly, in my view, right, inured to the benefit of the people of this country, with the provision of, 230 megawatts of power that we have consumed and we have paid for. All right. If for some reason circumstances have changed, there are contractual mechanisms available under the BOT agreement to address those. I don't think that we should embarrass ourselves politically as a country by sending a signal to the international community that when there's a change in government and you have the sufficient numbers, you can revoke the approval of a foreign investment, a contract.
Okay.
All right. I think that it is the wrong move. The Honorable K.T. Hammond is a very good friend of mine, and I think that he's probably better advised not to bring the motion. If he does bring it, we'll point out the legal and constitutional issues that will bedevil the motion as it is being moved in Parliament.
Let me be clear. Why is the minority and True Clement Park invoking the original jurisdiction of the court on this particular 2.25 bond deal?
I have heard that a writ has been issued.
Yeah.
But I have not seen the writ, and I would not want to hazard an opinion. I need to be able to see the writ and then to say why.
My final question to you, and one point that needs to be clarified, is that today the minority had difficulties with the conduct of the speaker. I've seen the speaker write in times past about how the majority and leadership stifle development and true accountability. You were raising similar questions. How serious is this issue? It's
a very serious issue. Ray, there is a saying that the majority will have their way.
Minority will have their say.
And the minority will have their say. It is not for nothing that saying, has, it's an old, adage, right, in political discourse. And I think that saying should be taken, very seriously. Okay. The minority should be given a say and let the majority have their way. The current speaker, unfortunately, is not being charitable with the minority. I in person, and I'll say it, on air, I have several times stood up to contribute, all right? And the speaker will just look the other way. On legal and constitutional matters.
What can you do?
Yeah,
what can you do?
Well, I can do nothing, but let me say it. There was a day it was so embarrassing. But the other thing too is that I have submitted a statement to the speaker for 3 weeks now on the looming crisis in professional legal education. I'm a former law lecturer who has dealt with students, and I still deal with students who are some of my students who are roaming the streets. And I submitted a statement. He has not admitted the statement.
Thank you so much. My time is out on this particular one, but Dr. Dominic Ayine is a former Deputy Attorney General. He's in the Parliament of the Republic of Ghana. He was my guest today. We looked at the withdrawal on Special Prosecutor's bill, whether they will support it when it's put in blue shape and brought back to the House. My name is Raymond Alkwa, and this has been UPfront.